A robot only 120 millimeters wide and weighing 56 grams can move through water on a reported 28.5 milliwatts of drive power. But behind that tiny transparent body is a propulsion system with no propeller, no rigid transmission, and no conventional motor turning a shaft. Have you ever wondered how a robotic jellyfish is actually built? We are tracing the entire journey, from soft electrode material and artificial muscle to the moment the finished machine holds position and recognizes a target underwater. Stay with me, because the most important part of this design is not its transparency. It is the hidden relationship between two different motions inside the bell. This is Modus assembly. The finished robot looks almost too simple to be engineered. A clear dome contracts around a small electronic core, and the machine pulses through water like a jellyfish, rather than pushing itself with a propeller. Northwestern Polytechnical University calls it the underwater phantom. The 12-centimeter prototype weighs a reported 56 grams, uses 28.5 milliwatts across its drive array, and carries a miniature camera with embedded AI processing. Those numbers create the first contradiction. A soft body must deform freely, but a camera and processor are rigid. A transparent robot must hide as little material as possible. But every actuator needs electrodes, wiring, structure, and control electronics. And a machine built for water must repeatedly change shape without allowing that same water to damage the components inside. So the real question is not how engineers copied the appearance of a jellyfish. It is how they compressed movement, structure, sensing, and control into a body that still behaves like one. The process begins with the part viewers can barely see, the electrode material. The university identifies a hydrogel electrode as one of the project's core technologies. It does not publish the complete chemistry, layer thicknesses, curing sequence, or production tooling. That boundary matters. This is a research prototype, not a factory product with an open manufacturing manual. What is known is the job the material must perform. An electrode has to carry the electrical field that activates the artificial muscle. But in this design, it also has to remain soft enough to bend with the body and unobtrusive enough to preserve the robot's nearly transparent appearance. That combination changes the manufacturing problem. A metal plate can conduct well, but it resists deformation and adds a visible, rigid element. A thin, flexible conductor can move, but repeated bending, water exposure, and connection points create new failure risks. The electrode is not simply attached to the muscle. It becomes part of a layered, soft machine. The result is called an electrohydraulic artificial muscle. The name sounds biological, but the principle is engineered. An applied electric field changes the internal force distribution of a soft, fluid-filled or hydraulically coupled structure. That electrical input becomes controlled deformation. Instead of turning a shaft, the actuator contracts or bends. But one artificial muscle is not enough. A real jellyfish does not move by squeezing its bell in one simple direction. Its dome changes volume, while the rim and radial sections move together. If a robot only compresses vertically, it may push water, but it will not necessarily form a stable, repeatable pulse. If its edge flexes unevenly, the body can yaw, roll, or waste energy in lateral movement. The Northwestern Polytechnical University team answered that problem with two actuator families. The first is an annular contraction actuator. It runs around the bell like a soft ring muscle. When activated, it changes the circumference and helps compress the dome. The second family is arranged radially. These flapping actuators extend outward from the center and control the way individual sections of the bell bend. The ring changes the overall contraction. The radial elements shape the pulse. This is the detail that earned the project its competition name, Vortex-Ring Dancer. The actuator array cannot be assembled as a random collection of flexible strips. The elements have to be placed symmetrically around a common center. Their electrical connections must reach the control system without creating a stiff bundle on one side. Their resting shape must allow the bell to reopen after every contraction, and their timing must be close enough that the body moves as one structure. At this stage, the robot begins to look less like loose laboratory material and more like a circular machine. The annular element defines the perimeter. Radial actuators divide the bell into controlled regions. A central area remains for structural support and electronics. Yet it still cannot swim. The array now has motion, but it does not yet have the complete body that turns that motion into useful water flow. That body is the transparent bell. Public images show a rounded, clear dome with the drive structure arranged beneath or within it. The university has not disclosed the exact polymer, forming technique, or bonding process used for every section. So claims about a specific molding machine, adhesive, or thermal sealing method would go beyond the evidence. The engineering requirement is clearer than the manufacturing recipe. The bell must be compliant enough to collapse under actuator force, resilient enough to reopen, and balanced enough to repeat that cycle without twisting. It also has to transmit the actuator motion across a larger surface. This is where geometry begins to matter as much as material. A shallow bell may deform easily, but displace less water. A deeper bell can contain more volume, but may demand greater actuator travel. A thick wall can improve durability while resisting motion. A thin wall improves flexibility while increasing the risk of wrinkles, tears, or uneven recovery. The team's design has to find a narrow middle ground. It cannot be a rigid, transparent shell with moving parts hidden below it. The shell itself is part of the propulsion system. Once the bell and actuator array are joined, the prototype finally becomes recognizable. A transparent dome sits over the circular muscle system. Flexible elements extend below. The center remains visually denser, because this is where the project has to place the hardware that nature does not need. The camera comes first in the visible story. The robot uses a miniature camera module. It needs a clear field of view, a stable mounting position inside a deforming body, and a connection that does not pull the robot off balance. Then comes the embedded AI processor. The university reports that the system can use onboard processing for environmental sensing and target recognition. In a public demonstration, the robot held position in disturbed water and identified selected visual targets, including a university emblem and a clownfish image. That sounds like a software achievement. Physically, it is also a packaging problem. A processor, power electronics, and control board introduce concentrated mass. Place them too high, and the robot's trim changes. Move them off-center, and the body may tilt. Enclose them too heavily, and the robot gains weight. Leave them insufficiently protected, and the water environment becomes the failure point. This central package also has to distribute commands to the ring and radial actuators. The controller is not merely switching the entire bell on and off. It must coordinate a mechanical sequence. The ring contracts, the radial sections flex, the bell pushes water, the actuators relax, the structure recovers. Then the cycle begins again. That sequence produces the effect the project is built around. When the bell contracts, it accelerates a volume of water downward and away from the body. Along the boundary of that moving jet, the water rolls into a rotating, toroidal structure, a vortex ring. The robot moves in the opposite direction. The ring is not decorative turbulence. It is the visible result of the bell organizing water into a useful momentum pulse. This explains why the two actuator families matter. The annular actuator helps control the change in bell volume. The radial actuators shape how the rim moves. Their coupling changes the formation and release of the vortex beneath the robot. A badly timed pulse can scatter energy into irregular flow. A coordinated pulse produces a cleaner ring and a more stable reaction on the body. The robot does not simply flap. It manufactures a repeatable structure in the water, one contraction at a time. If you enjoy documentaries that follow engineering from hidden material to finished motion, subscribe to Modus Assembly. The next stage is where this delicate prototype has to prove that every layer works together. Before water testing, the completed body needs basic system checks. The public sources do not reveal a named inspection sequence, so it would be inaccurate to pretend we can watch Northwestern Polytechnical University's exact checklist. But the physical requirements are unavoidable. The electrical paths have to remain continuous while the bell flexes. The array has to move symmetrically. The camera must retain a clear view, and the body must sit in the water without rolling onto one side. For a rigid underwater vehicle, engineers can often isolate structure, propulsion, and payload into separate modules. In this robot, one adjustment can affect all three. Add protective material around the electronics, and mass increases. Change the mass, and buoyancy changes. Change the trim, and the direction of each propulsion pulse changes. Reinforce the bell, and the actuator may no longer deform it through the same range. Increase actuator force, and the flexible layers experience more stress. That is why the first successful pulse is more than a movement test. It confirms a chain of decisions. The completed robot is lowered into controlled water. At rest, the bell is open. Electrical input reaches the artificial muscles. The annular element contracts, while the radial actuators bend the bell. Water is driven below the body. The bell relaxes and recovers. The robot rises or holds position as the cycle repeats. Now the camera and processor can be evaluated as part of the same moving system. Holding position in disturbed water is harder than swimming in a quiet tank. The robot has to recognize that its relative position is changing, then adjust its actuation without creating a large corrective surge. Its advantage is not speed. It is the possibility of small, low-disturbance movements produced with very little reported drive power. The demonstration connects the life cycle. Transparent electrode material becomes an artificial muscle. The muscles become a deformable bell. And the finished body produces vortex propulsion while sensing its surroundings. But there is a line between what the prototype has demonstrated and what its designers imagine next. The documented machine is a laboratory research robot. Public material supports tank movement, stable hovering in a dynamic water environment, and visual recognition. It does not establish a production run. A military customer, a certified operating depth, a published endurance figure, or deployment in an operational mission. The vortex-ring dancer project also proposed a spherical transport enclosure inspired by a fictional capture ball. The concept could protect the soft robot during transport and allow another unmanned platform to carry it toward a work area. The team discussed aerial or underwater delivery as an expanded application concept. That is not the same as a fielded deployment system. It is an engineering direction, and the direction is easy to understand. A small, soft, low-disturbance robot could be useful where conventional propellers create too much noise, turbulence, or physical risk. The university has identified possibilities, including ecological observation, long-duration environmental monitoring, and inspection of confined underwater infrastructure. Each application adds a new manufacturing challenge. Greater depth demands pressure tolerance. Longer missions demand proven energy storage and sealing. Real navigation demands reliable localization and communication. A larger sensor package changes mass and trim. Repeated deployment demands a body that can survive thousands of cycles, along with handling, storage, and recovery. None of those problems disappears because the robot already swims. That may be the most important fact about the underwater Phantom. Its transparent bell attracts attention, but transparency is not the core achievement. The core achievement is integration. A hydrogel electrode has to remain compliant. An electrohydraulic actuator has to produce useful deformation. A ring actuator and radial actuators have to work as one muscle system. A clear bell has to turn that movement into a controlled vortex, and a rigid camera and processor have to fit inside without destroying the balance of the soft body. The answer to the central question is not one material or one motor. Engineers compressed propulsion, structure, sensing, and control into 56 grams by making the body perform several jobs at once. The bell is the outer form, the transmission, and the pump that organizes the water. The actuator array is the muscle, while its geometry becomes the foundation for controlled movement. What looks like a simple pulse is an entire manufacturing chain closing in one motion. That is how China's biomimetic Jellyfish robot is assembled, and why its smallest visible movement reveals the largest engineering idea inside it. This is Modus assembly.